As I'm recording this for you, the sun is setting on a beautiful day, and the sky is filled with pale pink and blue, sort of the colors of a baby's nursery room. And there is a sudden feeling of quiet and peace. And that's true even though the day has been filled with activities like delivery trucks and buses and trains whizzing by, all of us in a big hurry to go somewhere. But I think that the sunset time has the same feeling that all of us are sensing with this upcoming meetup of the new 500-year cycle of Saturn and Pluto together in Capricorn. So we're hearing a lot about tipping points and the big shift. And I talk a lot about turning points, and this week certainly is going to be one. But underneath it all, I think we know that we're coming into a time that is going to be filled with so much more cooperation and laughter and peace of mind. And we can feel that this week. Let's see, it's November the 18th through the 24th. We feel that even though we're now in the most powerful phase, which is the 8 weeks of the waxing energy building up to the exact conjunction of Pluto and Saturn on January 12th. And in the buildup of this intensity of these planets meeting, they're going to be, in the summit peaks of Capricorn mountaintops. And there we are already downloading all this far-seeing and clairvoyant energy that because we can look beyond the turmoil of the world that we live in, and we can see the light beyond, such that the noise and the seeming chaos as we're hearing the crumbling of the patriarchy of 500 years of domination and abuse of power by a handful of people who misuse their authority. The stars are lining up in our favor. That is, if what you want is some balance of equality and humanity, balance of the global village, but it's sort of like a magical mashup of yin and yang, where there really isn't any longer a division. This Monday, November 11th, starts off rather steamy and sort of builds to a crisis point on Tuesday, because we have a Leo moon making a lot of fire at that crisis turning point of the third quarter moon. And the fire is meeting up with a very deep waters of a Scorpio sun. So fire and water, the best thing that can happen there is that we contain it. We hold it like an alchemical cauldron so that we create steam. And the steam, of course, is a form of metamorphosis. And it gets a lot steamier Monday when Mars, who has been in Libra, moves into the sign of Scorpio. And Mars in Scorpio is not only the sign of the most passionate sexual lover in the zodiac, but that kind of intense emotion also carries with it this restless courage and a sort of a thoroughness about everything that you do. So this can be like other signs in Scorpio, but especially because it's Mars, the warrior. You can use it to go to the greatest heights of spiritual achievement, or fall to the lower depths of moral degradation and all kinds of activities of the underworld. Obviously, like always, our choice is to choose our guide from our soul's code, from spirit, and rather than letting the ego run that show and run us into some trouble. So we are going to be meeting, however, all this resourcefulness with Mars, taking it to some difficult situations. But that is good news, because we now want to have sort of a uncompromising stance, not a fight really, but standing for our principles. That's going to be very strong energy in the month to come. Remembering always that what the ego would use for evil, your spirit will use for good. And using the power of that kind of shift is going to be particularly poignant this week. We are really going to see the shift, because we are going to have ahead of us, building right now, the most beautiful and generous spirited of Thanksgivings that we've had in many, many years. Meanwhile, on the darker side of this shift this week, we now then have Mars in Scorpio joining the Sun in Scorpio. And he's not been my favorite character lately, but Mercury, the messenger planet, is also in Scorpio. The really good news is that he is finishing the retrograde phase and turning direct this Wednesday, November 20th. If you remember, I was talking about the fact that Mercury started this retrograde phase on Halloween, sort of a beautiful symbol for all of the junk that he's been digging up at the deep, deep bottom of the lakes of Scorpio. And personally, I tell you, I've had times of electrical currents here going awry that I felt like I was going to throw out Google and Apple and my computer along with it. I had some challenges, let's say, that threw me into that retrograde Mercury down in those ghosts of the past, because it seems to bring up, this is me personally, some of those cruel judgments that I've held against myself and didn't know they were operating until, something went wrong. And then it was in my face. And the reason that's such good news is because that helped me bring it into the light, where I can dissolve it, hopefully, with some forgiveness. When I pause and I look at it with an alert awareness and step back in the objectivity that all this Capricorn energy is bringing to all of us. Here's the timetable for you to track what Mercury has been stirring up in your life. So he's in that prolonged 39 days in Scorpio from October the 3rd to December the 9th, 2019. And he did go retrograde on Halloween, October 31st. And he stayed in Scorpio through all of his retrograde phase, which ends, as I mentioned before, this Wednesday, November 20th. But he won't get back to the exact degree that he started his retrograde phase in until December the 7th. So this is kind of a long haul. And what do I see that Mercury is trying to show us, trying to teach us with this very long trek? I think we are seeing evidence really manifesting very quickly to show us that what we believe is what we see in the world. In other words, we create our own reality, of course, by our thoughts. And right now, my experience is that that is manifesting very quickly. Like I fell into some negative thinking about my computer software, and very quickly I was able to see my misery thinking that, right? and stop and choose to believe that the world is not attacking me. In fact, no one is attacking me but me. And therefore, I'm the one who has the choice and the power to change my own reality. And the second part of that is that when I fall into a negative judgment, which is, of course, a form of fear, I am always alone. Even if I'm with someone else, unless I share it with them, I'm still stuck in the illusion. So, for example, I would suggest that you have an experience like you tell a friend of yours about a bad dream or a nightmare that you had that frightened you. Maybe you can just have to come up with a daydream of something that has been on your mind that was quite negative for you. And what we notice when we tell it to someone else, even though they love us and they're listening very attentively, but you right away get that they're not fearful, they're not having the same experience you are, which tells us that if two people can look at the same information and get two totally different reactions, then we're just dealing with illusion. I mean, Mercurial Mercury is the trickster of the zodiac. His archetype is literally the magician. And he is, through some of that seeming chaos or what looks like a negative event, he's actually teaching us the deceptive nature of perception. We can laugh at it when we get that it's all smoke and mirrors. And, let's stop here about our own purpose. Certainly my purpose and why I follow the movements, the matrix, the pattern of the stars, is that just like the moon is the reflection into the dark hours on earth of the sun's rays, likewise, our mission here on earth as the bringers of the light is to reflect the light of our source, of our Creator, into the darkness of other minds. And the moon brings this up close and personal for each of us because she is the trigger for the bigger outer events and giving you events and instances in which you can see how they want to manifest in your own life. So we'll roll along with our peaceful hearts and our minds being objective visionaries from the steamy beginning of the week and that turning point in with the Leo moon on Tuesday. That's the third quarter moon, so something shows up in your life that you need to let go of. It's time for pruning. Not necessarily of your ideas, but rather of interactions with the outer world. So that's feedback that you've gotten about yourself or something that you're doing, and you want to make sure it's still true for you and helpful for you. And from Leo this week, we're going into Virgo Earth and Libra Air and back to Scorpio Water. The moon's glowing energy Tuesday night through Thursday morning in Virgo Earth helps us with very meaningful accomplishments, sort of a cleaning up and the clearing out of obstacles that we may have found on our path. And you'll feel the shift, we all will, on Thursday morning, because the sun will leave Scorpio and we move into this sense of abundance and optimism. We know that we are capable of so much more than we dreamed that we could, because we tend to ignore the truth of our magnitude and we get picky and get stuck in what we think is our littleness. So with the Sagittarius sun for the next month, our horizons lift, and so lift your spirits with that, no question you will. So the sun leaping into Sagittarius fire, brings us to Thanksgiving, because he brings with him the cornucopia of, yes, it's abundance in all things, but mainly Sagittarius is the archer, right? And so this is the archetype of that adventurous archer whose arrows fly straight to the uncensored truth. So all through this year, we have been challenged to unveil, to bring into the light all kinds of deceit and lies. And so the archetypes across the world stage have been playing those roles for us so that we can really see it, right? And now, though, we get to sort of pole vault into the realms of the higher mind, into the realms of gratitude. Thanksgiving is the Sagittarius holiday because it's characterized by, well, let's say that pay it forward kind of energy, where we have acts of kindness, especially if you join me in doing that with someone who perhaps the ego judges as unworthy of your generosity or unworthy of your kindness. Even if you don't even have a negative judgment that you know of, it might just be a person you ignore. Like the woman I saw this week who was standing at the corner of a very busy intersection, and she was holding a sign that simply said help. And as the angels would have it, I was stopped at a rather long red light, and so I decided to just roll down my window and give her a little bit of money. And when she came over to get that, because, I had to stay in my car, I saw that she was handicapped. She was challenged with the ability to speak. But I totally understood her thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she was saying. What a gift to me. It's showing me that I've left behind those old kind of judgments like don't give them money because they'll buy drugs or whatever. It's not up to me what she does with the money. It's none of my business. But I got to have this moment of exchange with her in which I know our minds were joined in thankfulness. And, you and I could agree to believe together that every day is a day of Thanksgiving. So the Libra moon shows up on Thursday to meet that fiery Sagittarius sun, and they just absolutely love each other. The stuff of combustible joy. Then on Saturday, the moon in Scorpio is going to trigger that meetup of Saturn and Pluto. So take note of how you see events unfolding in your personal life. And Sunday, the 24th of November, I hope you will hold that day open and free for the angels to bring you so many beautiful gifts, some surprises, some unexpected love letters, and some heartfelt communications that perhaps while Mercury was retrograde were held at bay. And Sunday will be the perfect day for all of our goodwill to spill out that we had been holding back. And I invite you to join me in allowing the space for a memory a memory of home that always hangs out in a corner of our mind. It's a little bit like a haunting, but it is a voice we recognize that reminds us of the place where we are all one, the place where we belong and are nothing but love. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to come back next week and tell you all about that wonderful Thanksgiving. Judith Royal. You can reach me at judith@judithroyal.com. So I'll say goodbye for now, and I love you.